Hello everyone, welcome to Streaming Into the Void episode number 7. We're on 7 episodes of this. Me and Steve are really doling off this content for you guys. Every single week we've been going at each other's throats about what kind of content we want to give you guys. So we actually got some really good topics this week. We have no guests this time around, unfortunately. We had some planned, but unfortunately it looks like that fell through. No big deal. I know everyone's got personal stuff going on, but nevertheless, I know me and Steve can keep you company for at least 1 to 2 hours. This episode might be a bit shorter because him and I both have a lot of personal stuff going on, but we're still here to talk to you guys mindlessly about things that you probably don't care that much about. So, without further ado, what do you want to say, Steve?
Basically, if the podcast runs short, don't hate us for it, but...
Yeah, we're both kind of just...
It's been a week. It's been a week.
Yeah, we're both going through a lot right now, and we both have things that we need to handle. I got a lot I got to get doing soon, and so does he. But the one thing that we want to make sure you guys know real quick is, I didn't tweet this out. Maybe I did. It's very possible. I just forgot. But anyway, what we're going to start doing is every 4 weeks, we're going to have an off week. So after the 8th episode, the next week there will be no podcast. Then after the 12th, there will be no podcast. For that next oncoming week, to give us a break, go over more topics, try and schedule more guests, because I'm learning very quickly, and so is he, how draining this can be to set this up week by week. I know it doesn't seem a whole lot, but we got to think about topics, ones that are not redundant. We have to think about who we want to bring on as guests, schedule them around their scheduling as well, and then I got to get 4 hours at least of gameplay, which I know that sounds easy, but it really isn't, because I got to get a new game every single week, and yeah, I kind of stick to my same games. I'm a creature of habit. So I'm constantly playing newer games, trying to get 4 hours of decent gameplay footage among technical difficulties. And if you guys didn't know, 4 hours of gameplay, Steve can tell you this, is about 55 gigs worth of data.
Mm-hmm.
Raw footage.
A lot of raw, uncompressed footage. So it takes up a lot of space, and it's a part of the process of making sure this works out for you guys.
But I record in the higher quality because, we care about our quality. We want to make sure you guys are looking at the best content possible. But yeah, we want to make sure we got that out before I forgot to say anything. But we have actually some really good topics this week, and I'll let Steve introduce the first one.
All right, so the first topic that we've got is actually the idea of traditionalism. Or, with people in our generation, everybody has everyone wants to have the mentality, or everyone idolizes or romanticizes the mentality of be successful, hustle, make a lot of money. Not everyone is like that. I know personally in my family, my aunt, I love her to death. She wanted to be a stay-at-home wife, and there was nothing wrong with that. She wanted to raise the kids, cook and clean, and do all that stuff. And that's, for the most part, that's what she did. She eventually did get a job and stuff, but for different reasons. But traditionalism is where, in today's society, is it wrong? Is it right? So that's kind of what we're going to be discussing about that.
So I think what I'm going to start doing now is giving you guys the backstory as to where the inspiration for these topics come from. So I actually thought about these driving home from work one day. And the main reason I thought of this one is because I have a lot of friends that are females that had kids right after high school. And a lot of them post all the time about how people have talked down to them for being stay-at-home moms, not going on pursuing careers, or them saying that being a stay-at-home mom is their source of happiness. And then the women have come onto their statuses or posted saying, how can you be happy being a stay-at-home mom, not going out working or doing any of this other kind of stuff? And, as I've always said, I think numerous times in these podcasts, that happiness is entirely subjective for one, but kind of would make, if I was like that, and, being a mom, I would totally agree, is at least one job, if not 2 jobs in one. So to attest that you can't be happy being a mom, I think is ridiculous. Now, granted, when we're going to talk about traditionalism, this is the easiest one to tackle, but there's also the idea of the stay-at-home wife versus the breadwinner father, right? The idea that dad goes to work, works the 9 to 5, mom stays at home with Junior, all this other kind of stuff. That's the traditional sense of what the American dream was supposed to be, right? A 2-door car garage, a nice house, a white fence, a white dog named whatever you name your dog, I don't know.
Fido.
Yeah, there you go. Name him Fido. A decent paycheck to cover the expenses. Never have to worry about anything. The American dream, I guess, living decently within your means. That traditionalist sense of that's how things are back then supposed to be. Dad makes the money, mom takes care of Junior, everyone goes home happy, apparently. Now, in this new generation where the millennial idealists, or even this Gen Z, Gen Y, whatever this new generation is. I keep forgetting the letter they're assigned to. Now, I would say hates the previous generations for, in their eyes, messing up the economy, and I'm not going to debate that. I can't say they're wrong or right. I haven't looked at the numbers. Arguably, they're correct. But, now the idea is both people in a relationship have to consistently grind, quote unquote, right? Or work all day, every day. We're going to get this bread. We're going to eat this wheat, whatever you want to call it. And it's nonsense.
I've never heard of that one.
That's my personal favorite one. And that's how it has to be. We're working all the time. This is all we got. All we know is work, and that's it. And I don't agree with that personally, because I don't see what's necessarily wrong with living on one income if it is plausible and feasible to the relationship standards, right? If one person can provide everything necessary, then I don't see the point in making someone who doesn't want to work if, again, as I've already said, being a mother is a job in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Being a parent, not even a mother or a father or whatever, being a parent is a full-time job, and when you work a full-time job, it becomes very stressful, which is why traditionalism was founded on the idea that one person's full-time job is to make money to provide for the family, and the other one is to take care of the kids as their full-time job, just without paying benefits and all that stuff. That's where the idea came from.
On paper, it makes perfect sense.
On paper, it makes perfect sense, but when you throw economics into it, and you throw other different, you throw other different wrenches into the gears, so to speak, let's just say the economic crash of 2008. A lot of parents and a lot of people had to have two people going to work because they were losing money in the stock market and the housing market and financial crash, and it was a bad time. So they would go from a one-income household to a two-income household, and they would just be staying over the line. And then once the economy rebounded, a lot of people just stayed at work because they already had the tenure to keep making the money that they were making, and they just decided, let's just keep it going. And a lot of people frown on traditionalism because everyone's big goal at the end of the day is they want to make an absolute ton of money. And I agree with it to an extent, but make sure you're using it, enjoying it, instead of just earning it and just hoarding it, because you can't take it with you when you die. So
we've gone over that in a different podcast entirely.
Yeah,
I think that was episode
we went over that
5.
I believe it was 2 episodes ago.
Right. So, I guess it's on a case-by-case basis, but mostly the reason we're discussing this is because it's not necessarily the idea of traditionalism versus progressivism. Because, as I've said before, everyone seems to think now that you have to always be progressing and changes are always having to be made. The old saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think that's kind of what everyone kind of needs to accept in some circumstances, because I think with our generation and the newest one, again, whatever their letter is they're assigned to, they're always, we need to be progressive, we need to change things, the old ways don't work, everything's broken, the system sucks, everything's terrible. And I guess on paper I could see that, but it doesn't matter what system you replace anything with, everything is going to have inherent flaws because humans are creating it, therefore it will be flawed because we are flawed. You see what I'm saying? It's just that you can't create a perfect system. I don't really see why people think that we can when you can't. So I think people need to accept the idea that not everything has to always be changed for the sake of progression. Right. Because it doesn't, because on paper, sometimes it's not even progression, it's regression.
Mm-hmm. Right. One of the big things that I think is, with traditionalism, people, as Matt was saying, everyone wants to they want to be the next big change in the world. Everybody wants to keep things moving forward, but they don't know when things are moving forward or when they're moving backwards or when they're staying stagnant or if they're running in circles. With traditionalism, it works. For a lot of people, it works. Let's just say, and it can go for either gender. Which is a big point that a lot of people forget, because they always view the male in the family being the breadwinner, and that's sometimes not the case. I know many families where the wife is the breadwinner of the family, and the father either stays at home with the kids or works a lower income job. And so with that, it's there's nothing wrong with having one source of income as long as you can provide and live happily. I mean, everyone wants to have a Lamborghini or something like that, or want to live comfortably and make $1 million and flex on their friends and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, whoever brings the money to the table really doesn't matter so much as you're happy.
Right, because when you think about the external goals, you for your Lamborghini, me for my GTR, right? It all goes back to the idea of at what cost, ironically. Besides the fact that at what cost to actually be able to afford said luxury, what else are you sacrificing to get that luxury?
You sacrifice basically your well-being, so to speak. I mean, many people that in my field, I'm going for IT, as I've said in previous podcasts, and I say every podcast just about, but that's just for the new people. But for me, I risk back pain, carpal tunnel, emotional damages, like mental stress and stuff like that to accomplish my goals later.
Oh, same here.
Yeah. So it's like what you're risking, is it really worth it to accomplish your goals? Whereas you could, like, for me, I can do my job and I have no problem doing it, make my money and all that. But like, I worked a job where I would come home sore every day. Everybody that worked there was miserable. Everyone was fighting and angry all the time. And it wasn't productive. Like you made, like, at the job that I had, I worked in a factory. I made more money than I did at any other job. And I worked half the time. But the problem was
the physical cost of making
the physical cost, and it wasn't like, I literally at the end of my time there, I went to my parents. I'm like, look, this isn't for me. And they're like, oh, but the money. And I'm just like, but me, like, I'm a person too, and my health is at risk. Like, I don't want to get hit by a forklift. Like, that sucks.
I mean, I'm not gonna. I say this with the utmost respect for people who work in those career fields. But
absolutely,
that kind of work is not for everybody.
Right.
Me and Steve are built relatively the same way. Steve, I think you're a bit more slender than I am, but our body type is basically the exact same. I didn't go into the Marines to become infantry because I could do it short term. I could do it long term. It would definitely break me. And,
absolutely.
And Steve, likely same story with that kind of career long term. There is nothing wrong with that kind of work, but it's not for everybody. Besides the people who have to do it. For example, my father. So my dad got into upstate farms when he was a kid. I think he was 17 or 19, one of those ages. And, my dad kept that job because it paid incredibly well. It was a union job, great health insurance, everything. But the physical demand was obscene. He's had numerous surgeries and health issues because of the job. But the one difference between my dad and Steve is my dad couldn't quit because he had a family to support. And there was no other job that he could get right out the gate with only a high school diploma that would pay anywhere near what he was making there. It just wasn't going to happen. That wasn't another factory job. That was basically the exact same thing, but probably paying less because then now at that point he's starting over and he's not a senior anymore.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is really nowhere else he could go. He was inadvertently trapped.
Right.
So
and
I have the utmost respect for my father for sticking with that, and he still works there to this day. My dad and my grandfather still works there too, and he's been working there 40 some odd years. My dad is coming up near his 30-year mark soon. So I mean, I have the utmost respect for them, but I could tell straight away that would not be the job for me. I'm not built for that kind of work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some people are built for it. They have the body structure where they can keep that up, and they're able to like make it work like longer than like you and I would do. I mean, like the best example I have of that, so to speak, was like when I was in middle school and all the way through high school and into college a little bit. I did parkour where I would just run around, jump off buildings, and like throw myself around, and like I was fine. But like now I'm 22 years old and my knees feel like they're 42 because of like I kind of abused my body. And so I have to be slower now and have to really take into consideration everything that I do because of like I don't want to hurt myself.
And for someone like me, I didn't do parkour, but I did sports year round. And now that I'm older and I have a desk job and I game a lot, I stream, I do all this digital media stuff, I'm sitting down a lot. And as someone who admittedly doesn't work out as much as he probably should, my body is taking the hit for it. Like, my back usually hurts most days, my knees hurt. And it sucks because I'm only a year older than Steve, but we both feel like we're twice our age.
Right. Physically, at least. I mean, mentally, we're like eons beyond our age. We're so wise.
Yes, entirely. I mean, you guys don't know this, but I'm actually a deity in another realm. No, I'm joking, kind of, not really. Anyway.
Yeah, you're the pony queen.
Don't bring that back. For ignoring that. But even still.
Anyways.
Yeah, even still.
Getting back to point, traditionalism, a lot of people they stick with the one income household, and they do get trapped into like that almost life, that like work come home sleep lifestyle, because they're the ones who have to like bring the bread home for the family. Whereas like if you were able to split the bills between two jobs, it, in my opinion, I see why traditionalism is a good thing. I see why it's a bad thing though. And I personally think a 2-income household is better than a 1-income household, because one, money makes the world go round, unfortunately, and all the people that say that like, oh yeah, like they make X, Y, and Z and it's all good, they can provide for me and stuff, and that's fine. But if they lose their job, a medical emergency, that income is cut off, and suddenly you're on Skid Row because you can't afford the lifestyle you thought you could when said person was living well.
That's why when we went over the money podcast, there's always the idea of living within your means and then living when you know you might lose those means. So what I mean by that is the people who, again, win the lottery, buy all this expensive stuff, and they don't have the actual income, that influx of money outside the lottery to support their lifestyle. It's the same with living a normal life. Maybe a bit more flourished than most people, but you could lose a job. You could lose a job at any point. I have a bit more security being military, but most jobs, you can walk in, they can be like, hey, we don't need you anymore, just get lost.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're SOL.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's really hard to, you always want to live comfortably for yourself, but it's also scary to think that you could always be out of money the next day.
Right.
Now, that's why the idea of saving comes in, but,
Saving, but that's a money podcast.
Right. And I think to go back in the addition of traditionalism, Steve, I'm going to ask the question, but then I'm going to continue. I want you to ponder on the question after. So what about the idea of the woman being the worker and the man being a stay-at-home father? So, for example, I've had people ask me, like, say I met a girl, right, and we got married or something, and then she joined the military prior to, everything else. And then she commissioned to be an officer. And then she would eventually make more money than me because she's an officer. And, she would outrank me, whatever. People would say, how would you feel about that? How would you feel knowing that your wife outranks you and makes more money than you? I'd be like, I don't care. Good for her. I mean, personally, I don't see the problem with it because her paycheck's my paycheck. But no, seriously, it only goes back to the idea, I think, for me, of just living comfortably. She does that well. That's perfect for us. Right. Instead of looking at it as separate incomes, it's for the sake of one team. The unison of the man and the woman, the man, the man, the woman, the woman, the toaster oven, the toaster oven, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to who's making the money, who's watching Junior, or who's making the money, or who's making more, people shouldn't look at it as who's making more, who's making less. It should be just how do they do as a team.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, the thing is, like, with marriage, it's literally a bond. That's how they describe it. It's a ceremonious bond of like two people's lives becoming one, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But the big thing there is people need to if you're marrying somebody, they're probably your best friend, and they're like you're in it together, and it's not like, oh, like I'm gonna get a divorce or I'm gonna make sure she doesn't make rank because I want to feel like the dominant. I'm sorry, that's petty, and that's very high school.
Entirely. The idea of just you need to hold someone back for the sake of feeling superior. That's I would say that's like a early high school mentality, or just a very childish mentality for the sake of superiority. Because as I just stated, the combined success of what you both reflects both of you, not just one of you.
Right.
Why would you want to hold someone back when it's all for the benefit of both of you? Supposed to be, anyway.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, that's really what that is. But I believe it was Sir Clerk had he mentioned something earlier that I really like is when we were talking about living within your means. A lot of people that live keeping up with the Joneses lifestyles, and yeah, that's if you don't know what that is, keeping up with the Joneses is essentially making sure you've got the newest best thing because everyone else has that type of thing. Like if somebody in your neighborhood bought a new car, you go out and buy a new car because you want to be on par with them. If they have hardwood floors in your house, you want to have hardwood floors. If they have marble floors, you want to have marble floors. You want to it goes back to the idea of you're flexing to appease people that you don't even know or you don't even like, so to speak. And for when it comes to this traditionalist lifestyle, that's really not necessarily feasible, so to speak, because like it comes down to living within your means. And if you can't do that, then you're SOL. I mean, like my family, like we do well for ourselves, but we're very good. We're good with our money. And so like you walk into our house, it's a nice house, but like we don't have marble floors. We don't have a maid. We don't drive brand new Mercedes and BMWs and stuff. We could, but we choose not to because that's just how we live our lifestyle. Like,
right. Because at what point is it needless flexing or needless? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Exactly. I mean, does hardwood floors, marble floors, a Mercedes? I mean, you and I like cars, but at what point does that make your life any better?
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, besides it adding needless luxury to your day, what benefit are you truly getting out of it? I mean, you have a house that's nice to live in. It works. It's not falling apart. You know, it's presentable. What more do you really need?
Yeah. Like I mean, like I'd rather like my uncle's a good example of this. He doesn't own a dishwasher. Like, he doesn't own, like, the machine that washes your dishes. Like, he's got old school, like, shag carpet in all his house because that's just what he likes. He's got linoleum floors. He doesn't have any hardwood anywhere. And, like, my mom and my aunt, like, we'd go over there and be like, oh, like, you've got all this money. You should definitely, like, look into upgrading your house. He's just like, I like my house. I like it the way it is, and I'm comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. And so you really can't, like, go back and say, like, well, if you like your house and you like the way it is, then don't live to appease other people that you might not even like. Does that make sense?
It does make sense to me, and I think it all goes back to, well, at least that particular one goes back to the idea of peer pressure. But what I've never understood really is why. Because if someone is okay with what makes them happy, in any sense, why pressure them to feel the need to change it because it's not new or it's not that great? For example...
Because complacency.
Well, yes. But, I mean, there's complacency where some people are like, you need to upgrade this is broken, this doesn't work. You know, there's, you know... For example, when grandma... You know, anyone's grandmother has a TV or any electronics that are so outdated that you're just looking at it and you're like, I'm getting old looking at this old object. You know, I feel ancient looking at this nonsense. So, you know, dad, mom, everyone's like, you need to upgrade this. You know, it's time to get to the new best thing. And she's like, I don't want to. I like it. You know, to an extent, there's complacency on the end of the person who doesn't want to change it. But then there's also the idea of peer pressure for absolutely no reason. So I guess it should be on topic. For just straight up living, for as far as your uncle goes, if he's happy with the way his house presents itself, there is absolutely no reason to change it.
Right.
Or people who drive standard cars, you know, people who drive base models, older cars like a 98 Civic or a 2000 Civic or whatever, the old Corollas, whatever it could be. You know, it doesn't look that cool, it doesn't have all the new features, but it does its job. It's a car, right? It's not breaking down, it's not broken, it works. Right. And, you know, people are saying you need to upgrade, you know, get the Bluetooth, you need to get this.
Treat yourself,
You know, all this other stuff. And sure, you could afford to do it, but do you really need to? You know, for example, a good example personally is my computer, the RGB stuff. Does it serve any purpose at all besides looks? No. It serves literally no purpose besides to look cool. That's all it does. Now, was it necessary? As I just said, no, it was not. Did I want to for myself? Yes. But would my computer function any differently outside if it was just standardized black fans? No, it wouldn't. So I think people need to understand per item or per situation what you should look at as far as what you're trying to force upon somebody else. It could be anything. You know, it could be how you dress, what you drive, how your house looks, you know, standardized stuff, I guess. Can you add anything to that?
Yep. I mean, what I was going to say is like, well, you know me, I'm a car guy. I love cars. And like I look at a lot of things from a very like I guess so, like a very analytical standpoint, so to speak. Like for me, I'd rather drive a nice car because when you do the math, you spend like it's like a third of your life like commuting from places, like going to work, getting groceries, stuff like that. So I'd rather do that comfortably because like yes, you have a car that can get from point A to point B, and if it's comfortable and if you're fine with it, cool. But to me, I'd rather spend more money there because I know the value that has to me. And it comes down to people's preferences with stuff. Hence why you put RGB fans and RGB RAM and all your stuff in your crazy computer. Like, it serves no purpose besides looking cool, but you'd prefer to have that over just a standard, like, black fan that doesn't light up. And it just comes down to people's preferences. Like, if you want to have, like, a more, not even, like, old, but as long as it's like not dilapidated, like, or you're not like driving the jalopy car or anything like that and stuff like that. If it serves its purpose and you're content with it, that's good. And as long as it doesn't become detrimental to your health or to somebody else like in the world,
or your financial health, I should say.
Right, like, because I mean, I have friends that drive old beat up like cars, and they'll drive these old beat up cars, and they're like, oh, it's fine, it gets good gas mileage, it gets me from point A to point B. It's like, yes, but a wheel bearing's gonna go out, and they don't make parts for that car anymore. What are you gonna do then? Like, you got to keep up with the times simply for the sake of saving yourself money in the long run rather than the short term. You
have to upgrade at some point just to stay current to the generation you're speaking on. And that mostly goes with electronics, because cars, you could probably find that part he needs. It'd be specialized. You'd have to search on eBay, or Amazon, something, a junkyard, whatever. Yeah. You could find it. It'd be a pain, and you probably have to pay a lot of money for it too.
Yeah, it's also like it's for the sake of convenience, so to speak.
Yes. So I mean, I think everyone's gonna have that one thing where, at least one thing where they are going overboard because they love it. You know, they want to invest not all, but a bigger portion of their financial resources and time into it, but simply because it makes them happy. You know, your collectors, you know, like me, or you with cars or anything. Some can be more expensive than others, sure, but everyone's going to have at least one thing where they just go completely crazy with it, and that's totally fine. Right. But you need to. It all goes back to you need to know when it's time to step back and examine when it's time to save money. For example, like me. Because I'm moving soon, I'm penny pinching. I'm not buying anything for my computer. Right. I am not buying anything except food. And that's basically all I bought these last few paychecks.
Yep.
Does that make me happy? No, it sucks, because there's a lot of things I want right now. You know, looking into doing my cosplay stuff and all this other nonsense. And it's all expensive stuff. And I really want to do it. But I can't, even if the deals are good, because I need to save money for furniture, potential costs up front, you know, rent, money down, because some places literally want the down payment plus first and last month's rent. It's obscene.
In case you leave early.
Yeah, they want a lot of money up front, and that's ridiculous. In my opinion, you want for some that could be almost $3,000 right there.
Right.
It's annoying. So
yeah, it's money.
Yeah. So I mean, it's being smart with it. But I think one thing that sucks for most people, and I'm kind of immune to this situation because being military, like I've said prior, but it's hard to plan your life around income when you never can be certain that you're not going to have it.
Right.
So it's like, how do you live if you don't know you'll always have a paycheck? So people are lucky they never had to worry about that. But, you know, for example, for you, say you got a summer job and they were saying, hey, Steve, we're thinking about keeping you full-time after the summer months. They said thinking is the key thing here. And then they start talking about it more, like, yeah, for sure this is going to happen. You start planning your life around that. You start spending more money because you're sure going to get that job. And then the summer months end, and they tell you, hey, man, sorry, we don't need you.
Yeah, right? Like,
and then you're SOL because you thought you were going to get that job because it sounded like you were going to. All signs pointed to Lauderdale, but you didn't get it.
Right, exactly.
So what do you do now?
You're SOL, you apply for unemployment, and you just gotta search your butt off to find a new job that will keep you living to give you a survivable income. I mean, and that's like one of the things where like people will like all the people that I've like I'll go back to my experience in the factory. The people that work there are like there are people there that have been there for 30, 40 years, and it's like they're not making crazy money and stuff like that. Like they're probably making like 50 to 60,000 tops, and after 30 years of being there, and like they're always complaining and stuff, but it's like, and then when I come in and I'm just this scrawny college kid saying, oh yeah, I'm only here for the summer because I'm going to school. They're like, oh, why are you doing that? You can just work here. I'm like, yeah, but you complain because you have to put here. You have to put gas in your car and you can't afford food and your wife is doing this and all that. And like, you're trying to put a new roof on your house and stuff like that. And you can't afford all this without working all these extra hours and destroying your body. And like, I mean, to me, it's like, it's not worth it. I would hence why I'm in college. I would rather take 4 to 5 years of my time, get a piece of paper that says I'm good at doing something, whether it's valid or not is really
up to interpretation, as we discussed before.
Exactly, it's up to interpretation. And like, I'd rather have that so that way, because especially in my field, like I know people that are like they go for their degree in pottery or ceramics or underwater basket weaving, and you're not going to get a job there. You're going to be a waitress for the rest of your life unless you change what you're doing. But with this, like, you have to take into account long term, and if you don't, you're gonna be stagnant and you're not gonna be able to live a life you really want to live. Like, all the people that I talk to, they're all just scraping by and they're just trying to get by, and when they have to put a roof on their house because they bought a cheaper house because they couldn't afford a really expensive one, and they have to buy a cheaper car because they can't afford an expensive one. I'd rather take time where I'm not earning a direct income, but where I can earn more money later down the road. So that way it's a survivability, it's survivable, and I can thrive on it, so to speak. I mean, like,
we're going to take the short-term game, or you know what I'm saying?
Right.
What are you willing for? Because one of the big things in my family that, you know, a lot of members of the men in my family didn't go to college. My dad didn't, my grandfather didn't, and you know, it always went back to, you know, they did what they had to do to pay the bills. You know, pay the bills, pay the bills, pay the bills. And when I heard that might have been my life, I'm like, that sounds entirely miserable. Right. If I'm living just to pay bills, I mean, granted, everyone does, but if that's all I'm living for, then I don't want it.
Right. I mean, I'll give you an example of a conversation I actually had with a guy. The conversation in the lunchroom at the factory turned to cars. This guy was telling me about, he's like, oh, the best car I ever owned. And I'm thinking, oh, it'll probably like a BMW or something like a nice car that you enjoy driving. He's like, oh, it's a Chevy Cavalier. And the reason I loved it was because any part I needed was $20, put it on the car, and it was good to go on the road another day. And then he's like, oh yeah, Steve, like, what do you drive? I'm like, I drive this. And he's like, what do you want to drive next? I'm like, well, my dream car is a Lamborghini. It's a $200,000 car. He's like, what are you going to use that for? That doesn't serve any purpose. And I'm just like, it's fast, it looks good, and I like cars. So what is it? And he's like, man, I never thought of a car like that. I'm like, well, yeah, like, you work here. Like, unless you own the company that you're working for,
you will never feasibly own.
You're not going to have that. You're not going to have that mindset to like look and be like, oh yeah, like I want this. Like, to me, because like he got really angry at me. I forget the guy's name. I think his name, it wasn't Bob, but it might have been Bob. But I don't know. Bobby, yeah. But we had like this guy was like you'll never get that, and I'm just like, oh no, but I will. He's like, oh why? And I'm just like, because I'll be making more than you do. He's like, oh yeah, really? And he's like, what are you going to school for? Information technology. He's like, what's that mean? I'm like, I make the internet work. My job is to make the internet work. And he's just like, oh, snap. Like, he used explicits, but that guy didn't know how to. That guy didn't know how to speak without saying the F word between every sentence. That's besides the point. But
different generational mindset right there for sure.
Exactly, and like, he was focused on the whole short term, pay the bills, just get by. Like a good like vacation for him would be a long weekend, or a nice meal for him would be when he goes and cooks his own steak on the grill out back. Like, to me, I want to go to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant and scream in his face because I'm making more than Gordon Ramsay's. Like, that's my mindset on that.
I mean, good luck with that. That man is worth a lot of money, but I respect the idea. But as we've stated before, me and Steve are not disregarding or disrespecting the people who work those jobs or who have to live like that. Because I feel like a lot of them are put in that situation unwillingly. They either had families and it was the only thing they could do, or they walked into a high-paying job, got used to the pay, and then just didn't want to leave it.
Right, exactly. And so that's kind of what it comes down to.
So we're not disrespecting the people who do that.
No.
But, you know, there's something to be said about willing to work longer for the money. So for me, I've said numerous times before, getting the best of both worlds here, getting to be educated, go to college while also making money being in the military. But that also comes with the penance of being in the military.
Yep.
And having to put up with a lot of nonsense just for those benefits. And the longer you stay in, the more responsibility you get. You know, I'm about to be an E5 in 3.5 years, which you can only do in the Air Force if you going to toot my own horn here, promoted twice early like I did. That's not feasible in any other sense. So that's kind of my personal thing too, is just you can't disrespect people for wanting to go for the long-term gain like Steve does. Because I fully believe Steve will get that car. I do.
Yeah.
Will I ever get my GTR? It's very likely. And now my goal is not easier to achieve than his is because, as I've said before, you can get a used GTR for $50,000 to $60,000, which is pretty good, all things considered.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen like 2016s go for that price. It's mostly just the maintenance and the insurance that'll kick you more than the initial asking price. Mm-hmm. But, you know, that aside, it goes back to the idea of traditionalism, which in this sense we're still relative to the conversation. But why do you think that these older people necessarily hate but completely disregard the youngins like you who like the idea of college instead of just taking the paycheck? Why do you think that mindset comes from? Do you think it's out of a state of jealousy? Or do you think that they just imagine it as a waste of time because they think it won't actually yield anything? Yield.
I mean, I think the reason why they almost look down on it is because when they were our age growing up, they didn't have the opportunities that we have. So it comes down to a little bit like
generational ignorance.
Not even generational ignorance,
societal
but
ignorance.
Yeah, I'd say societal because it's society wide, not generationally, really. Because like I see people that are my age that are like people that are much older than me with the same mindset.
But you know, the society changes with the generation, so it kind of works both ways. But anyway, continue.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But I think it's because they don't have the opportunities that we have nowadays. Like, they didn't grow up with the internet. They didn't grow up with the idea that they can pick up a phone, call somebody across the country, and talk to them for 10 hours, and like, to them that was like almost a fantasy. It was like, it was unfeasible. And then because of how quick technology changed, it was like, it was just a big change. That's really what it came down to. And they weren't prepared for that change, so to speak. And so they were almost kind of caught, like they got left behind, so to speak.
I mean, to think about it, me and Steve right now are in two totally opposite ends of the country, connecting for free without the use of a phone at all, broadcasting it to you everywhere.
Yeah.
Back 20 years ago, if someone had brought that up, people would have laughed in your face.
Yeah.
But now it's standard. This is what people do every day.
Right. Like, there are people who make careers out of talking on the internet.
Yeah, like, which is hilarious. I mean, think about it. When you can literally open up a laptop, pick up a phone, and make money that way.
Right. I mean, the closest thing that our parents' generation, their parents' generation had before that was to be a radio star or to be a Hollywood actor, like an actor and actress. And to do that, you had to have connections. You had to live in the right place. You had to know the right people. You had to have the talent and the skill. Where today you don't need that. Look at Lil Tay. Look at 6ix9ine. Like, these guys really don't have all that much talent, but they know how to talk to people. They're crazy enough. They look crazy enough to get people's attention.
They're also lucky, insanely lucky. Don't forget that caveat.
They're very lucky, but like with those other things, it comes less and less to luck because like if I dyed my hair rainbow and tattooed 6ix9ine all over my face, people would pay me more attention, and so there's a better probability of you blowing up or going viral or doing something in your field like rapping or YouTube or whatever, stuff like that. I mean, like, look at PewDiePie. Most of his subscribers aren't from Sweden, aren't even from Europe. They're all like in New York.
Absolutely not.
Or not New York, America. And like, that guy is like the top YouTuber on the platform. And like,
T-Series is not. Subscribe to PewDiePie.
But like, nobody could have predicted like 50 years ago, if you told, like you were saying earlier, if you told somebody that you can pick up a device that you can talk to somebody on the opposite planet, have thousands of people watching you, and you don't see any of them, that blew people's mind. Like, the whole idea of like having a live studio audience and then broadcasting it to people at home, like 50 years ago, that was a crazy concept.
You needed a studio of high technical equipment in order to do that.
Exactly. Now I can pick up my phone and go live on Facebook. I might only go live to 5 people, but I can go live to Facebook. You can do it though. Exactly. This actually kind of leads into our next topic of or one of our tertiary topics of technology hurting communications, or communications ruining technology.
Right. And we're not going to segue into that one just yet, because I don't know if you have, but because there's still more we can touch on this one. But think about it though. So we've been fluctuating between 11 to 14 viewers during this podcast since we've started. And I don't know who the people are besides you guys commenting in the stream right now. There could be a lot of different people watching this from all over the world. And the fact that, because recently I hit the 10,000 subscriber mark, it's amazing to me thinking about that I have actually reached people all across this country, because the only people who are going to care about joining the United States Air Force are likely United States citizens. But you'd be surprised. I've gotten inquiries from people in Africa.
Yeah.
Like genuine ones too, like with genuine questions. So, but it always kind of blows my mind how simple it can be to make money if you know what you're doing or are willing to abandon simple morals for attention. Hence, a lot of these younger kids that me and Steve have kind of gone rounds with in the past, where we look at these people, the Logan brothers are the greatest example possible, and think to ourselves, how do people with this low mental capacity make money? But here's the kicker. They're likely very intelligent. They just know how to portray themselves and how to act to get attention. So they're probably not as stupid as me and Steve have said before. Likely, we just can't get on the same moral wavelength, because I'm not willing to do what they do for attention. I'm not. I'll call myself the Pony Queen all day. Am I willing to go out and disrespect people of Japan for money? No, I'm not. Am I willing to insult a dead body and then post it on the internet? No, I'm not. But they are. So it's kind of amazing to me how maybe they're not necessarily as dumb as they are, but their moral values likely are just that much lower.
Right. I mean, like, if you think about it, they got famous because of Vine. They got famous because of 7-second clips as, like, a comedy reel on a social media platform that isn't around anymore.
Which that upsets me. I loved Vine.
Everyone loved Vine. And if you didn't, you're a liar.
Yeah, me and Steve would have days where we just scroll through my Revines. Is that what they used to call them? Revine?
Yep. Yeah, Revines.
And we had so many ones. There was one Vine one that it was like Pac-Man. Well, remember?
Yeah.
Like, I forget what the song was, but it was hilarious. We quoted it all the time. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
but
we find that at some point.
I know, but anyway, continuing.
But like, when you think about it, like, how fast technology moves. Like, they got famous on a platform that isn't around anymore, and that was less than 10 years ago. Like, everything changes like that, and so if you're not up to speed and on par with, like, what's going on, you're gonna be left behind, or you're gonna not, like Matt and I, like, we've been on YouTube for a while. I haven't uploaded since I was in, like, high school, but Matt's been uploading for almost a decade now. I mean, like, it's really been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Only now is he starting to blow up. And that's still relatively speaking, because, like, I don't know if you saw this, Matt, but early last month, there was a Instagram profile that had a older gentleman. He was about 40 years old, and he had this big gray beard, and he went and he just danced around like he's a part of a big dance club, but he looked older than he was, and everyone saw this and they blew up. And, like, the guy's been on, like, he went from having 5,000 subscribers or followers on Instagram one day to the next week he had over 100,000. He was on Ellen, and he got to meet Post Malone, whose song he danced to, which made him go viral. Like, it's crazy how fast things blow up. And, like, he's had his 5 minutes of fame, but he's still going to be able to live off that for a while now because of, like, how fast it just blows up, and how, like, and when things blow up, everyone wants to capitalize on it. So they just throw money at you to do it.
I mean, the funny thing is people always say don't chase the 5 minutes of the 15 minutes of fame, but that 15 minutes of fame can pay your lifetime if you're smart with it. It can. I mean, that's why, for streamers, as much as I dislike him, Ninja is a great example of this. I don't respect him. I think he's a brat. I think he's annoying. But the one thing I do respect is his grind. And the reason I say that is because the man has made his money. He can stop streaming whenever he wants and live a high-end lifestyle as long as he's smart. It don't matter. So, I mean, that's kind of how it is for me. It's just the 15 minutes of fame can pay your life if you can make it last an hour, which realistically is a year, is the common length of time. 15 minutes to whatever. Point being is just if you're smart with it, that's all you need. Also, I will quickly go off topic. Matt put this argument to rest. Star Wars or Harry Potter? Star Wars.
Potter.
No.
All right. Okay. Fight me.
I look. You can Avada Kedavra, but I will just force choke you to death.
I literally had my friend carve a scar into my forehead freshman year of high school because she thought I looked like Harry Potter. I've shed blood for this fandom. I will not let that rest. I love both, but I prefer Harry Potter over Star Wars. Fight
Not
me.
a chance. And not only that, but the ironic thing in this situation is that I have the same birthday as the guy who plays Harry Potter.
Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, me and him have the same birthday. It's funny.
Interesting.
But anyway, I'm not trying to get us off topic, but I will quickly nip that one in the butt because Star Wars is superior in every single way.
I will set you on fire with a incendio, mother trucker.
Ooh, light me. Anyway, I think what people need to understand now is just that besides the ones who do relatively obscene things, who are willing to do the things that the Logan brothers, 6ix9ine,
even like cam girls, like they just put themselves out on the internet and like they'll do like obscene things. They'll masturbate on camera in front of thousands of horny guys
and make a lot of money off of it.
Like, I personally know people that do that, and like, is it a livable thing? Yeah, like
technically speaking, it is.
Well.
And the thing is,
do very well doing that, but like, I wouldn't do that. I don't mean to be disrespectful to people in that industry because I think it's a great, like, frankly, it's a great thing because there are people that are lonely. But
how about you stop judging me?
Listen, ho. But my thing is, I've got different standards. I'm not going to say I've got higher standards. I'm not going to say I have better standards. I've got different standards that I hold myself to. I've got different morals. I would not, like, hoe myself out on the internet for money because I don't think that's a proper way to make money. I would rather go to an office, work 9 to 5, and make my money that way because to me, I think that's a better way to do it. I'm being more productive for society to move forward.
I could quickly argue that with you would say that's a better alternative purely because realistically for you, that's really the only alternative you have. And I say this not to say you're not an attractive man. It's the fact that you are a man and that industry is completely rigged against you.
Right.
It's female dominated.
It worked.
100%.
Right. But let's just say, let's take it away from the adult industry then. YouTube. I can go on YouTube and I can make videos and videos and videos, but I'm not going to blow up. Like, the time for blowing up on YouTube and just going viral like that, like, it's past for me. Like,
it's not feasible to you anymore.
Right. It's not feasible because if I was 12, 13, 14 with a laptop or like a good computer that I could stream games on and I could do that, that would be awesome. And like, my parents have even told me, like, I totally have the personality for them. Like, I'll argue against that at another time, but I have other things to worry about now. I like the time where I could take the time and sit down in front of a computer, record a video, upload it to YouTube, and still get all my schoolwork done and still have a social life has passed. I have to focus on my schooling now. I have to focus on getting a job because I can't do that anymore. Like, it's not financially feasible for me because I've got bills I have to pay now. Whereas when I was younger, I didn't.
I think for me, as the one out of us who still actively does this, I mean, will my channel ever get to the point where it'll financially sustain me? Based on my history and the numbers, no. Likely it will not do that. Does it need to for me? No. At this point where my channel has 10,000 subscribers, good views on everything, I feel that what I have now has justified all the work I've put into it prior. Would I have liked more? Of course I would have. But am I going to argue with what I've gotten? Absolutely not. I am more than content with what I've been able to achieve this far. And that's totally fine for me. Now, am I still actively looking to blow up? Not really. And I guess people would say, then why am I even doing YouTube anymore? I do YouTube, at least my videos now, purely for the benefit of other people. I stream because it's fun. But for YouTube specifically, I do it to help people. And to see the numbers, I only look at it as a success based on purely the amount of people that I can reach. I love doing what I do to help people, even if people can be incredibly mentally exhausting in every kind of sense. Doesn't change the fact that I still do it for the benefit of others. I know that sounds entirely selfless, and someone's going to say, no, there's definitely a selfish reason behind it, and you're correct. It does help me in other aspects. But not one of those aspects, such as Twitch, where people can donate, subscribe, whatever, Patreon. Not one of those things have I ever said, I want you to do this. People have said, I want to give you a large sum of money, and I say, I will give it back to you. Don't do that.
Right.
You know, I'm not one to tell someone how to spend their money. I'm not one to tell people how to do, anything when it comes to their finances, unless they ask for my opinion. But, you know, I can understand wanting to support someone and to help them and do these things, but I would never honestly want anyone to do something like that for me. The financial reasoning or the financial benefit to what I can get from it is additional. What I love more than anything is the connection I get with people. So right now, 10 people are watching. That's amazing to me, period. We've had, me and Steve, I think the highlight of one of our podcasts, we had 25 people watching at one point? I think that was the highest we've ever gotten.
Right.
I think. And that's amazing to me, period. It's the connection I love. The ability to go live and people actually want to talk to me. Or us. Right. You know,
or people that, if we can keep people's interest in what we're talking about for, because I've had friends that every week I reach out to them, hey, check out the podcast. And if they tune in for the entire thing, if they tune in for 5 minutes, having them there and listening to me, it's amazing because, people believe that I have something to say that they're willing to listen to for even just 5 minutes. And that blows me away because, not to say I have low self-esteem, but I don't really view myself as someone who has a lot to say that people would really listen to me very much.
And that's the funny thing is I never thought that either. So I never envisioned myself as ironically, a visionary. I never imagined myself as a next generational thinker. I never envisioned myself as being anything else but just another member of society. Which, I'm going to say probably for most people is fairly common. I imagine most people don't think they're going to be the next big thing that changes the world. I don't think anyone truly thinks that. But the fact that I can do this and have people to just interact with is all I ever wanted. And you can even ask that with Steve. As I've said this before on the other podcast, Steve was there when I was putting in so much work into my videos before, hours to render videos on hardware that was so obsolete for what I was trying to do. I was trying to use, if anyone who is actually used to edit videos, Adobe After Effects, which is a very, very beefy software, on a laptop that had 2 gigs of RAM with an i3. That was not remotely feasible in any sense, and I was trying to do 3D stuff with it. And Steve can tell you, I did it, but it took forever.
Yeah, you would literally leave your computer on for 2-3 days to render a 5-minute video. I mean, it was obscene.
It was entirely obscene. And the video and the views were at least maybe an eighth of what I get now. And the videos, I'm not saying I put less work into them, but realistically, on paper, I do. Just because less has to go into the videos I make now. I don't need to do 3D video make. I don't need to add an obscene amount of effects. I don't need to do any of that stuff for the videos. I just sit there and talk and add in a couple of graphics here and there and call it good. That's all that needs to happen. Just because it's less doesn't mean, it's worse.
It means less. It just because it's less doesn't mean it actually means less.
So that's why when I look at it now, I'm not doing YouTube anymore for the pure benefit of blowing up or being famous or, any of that stuff. I do it because I love the connection. Anything else, the monetary gain that I've gotten from it, to others has justified it. For example, for the longest time, my family members not necessarily hated, but questioned why I did it. Everything I did, YouTube-wise. They said, I don't know why you do it, Matt. It's stupid. No one watches it because I'd make a video. I'd say, hey, guys, watch this. And they wouldn't. And then they would say, I don't know why you keep doing this. No one watches your videos. You should probably just quit. My family has said that to me. And if they're going to sit here and say they didn't, they did. Trust me, I remember that. Then now, there's absolutely no way to say that my content hasn't helped people or pushed people. There is way too much evidence to support me at this point. So now the fact that I can do this, and say that it helps and it does something, and I just could connect with people, it's 100% worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know we got a little off topic there, but
we went off on a little tangent. Do you want to go into our technology and communications?
Yeah,
because that's kind of where we're leaning that way.
So for me, this one came from kind of like that a Facebook post that I saw, and whenever people have something to complain about when it comes to how society standards are, people always go back to the idea of cell phones being the root of all evil. For example, relationship sucks. Oh, cell phones, social media. It's always those things. Those darn cell phones and
Those
their
pesky
Facebooks.
iPhones.
Yeah, those cell phones and their Facebooks.
Those darn book faces and phone eyes and stuff. Yeah.
Everything always goes back to cell phones and social media being the root of all evil. And me and Steve have torn into that topic, and for a large portion of it, we can agree with you. But now, the one thing I want to see is, right now, everyone always says that they ruin communication. You know, we're ignorant of each other. We don't connect. We don't talk. We don't speak anymore. And it's an overreaction, at least in my opinion. And the reason I say that is because when the TV came out, everyone thought the same thing. When newspapers started to become more common, everyone thought the same thing. So at what point are people just going to standardize communication and say this is just the next thing and chill out?
They won't, because it's something to complain about, and they like complaining about it.
That could be another topic. Why do you think people love complaining more than giving out the positives? Yeah. But even still, we could go into that if you ever want to. But yeah, that's something that I've always seen is just people are saying cell phones ruin everything. And for a large portion of things, I would agree. You know, it usually goes back to how the youth is obsessed with their social medias and, you know, the short-term the instant gratification, right? You know, I'm sure, Steve, you've been told you have that before. Oh, yeah. I've been told I got that. You know,
I will agree that I do have that in a case, but that's also the way I was brought up, where I want food. I go to the fridge. There's food there. I want to go on Facebook I want to see what other people are up to. I can do that. I don't have to call anybody. I don't have to text anybody. It's just right there. One of my things where you said how people complain about it, about like, no matter what you're really looking at, like if you look at an old image of a subway, if you look at an image of a subway car today, everyone's on their phones. If you look at an old image from like a trolley or a train back in the 1950s, everyone had newspapers. If you had, like, people didn't ride together in the 1800s with their horse and buggy because they couldn't hold all those people, but you wouldn't go out of your way to stop and see people because you had something to do. Like, but I also think that people will. Oh, I like what Lindsay's saying. Every generation wants something to blame rather than taking responsibility for the state of the world. Yes, I
was going to actually restate that entire comment when you were done talking. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But also, going off of what Lindsay just said, it's not even that, like, every generation feels more important than the previous. Everyone feels like they're doing something more than the last one
because of the current.
Right. And the thing is, it's people are interested. Have you ever heard of the term Sonder?
Sonder.
The term Sonder is basically like when you realize that everybody else around you has such a in-depth and interesting life just as much as you do. Like, you could just see somebody passing, you could pass somebody on the road and be like, wow, they live a life too. They go back to their house and their house looks like this. And
it's hard to wrap your head around that mindset, though.
It's hard to wrap your head around your mindset. And those that don't, it's not that they lack the idea of Sonder, but it's that they just don't care. And like, people complain about it because they just don't care about it. And instead of, especially in today's day and age, because access to information is instantaneous and very easy to do, instead of keeping their mouth shut and just keeping their thoughts to themselves, they take to Twitter and to Facebook and to Tumblr and to just rant and rave about whatever's on their mind. So it's like, it doesn't really matter, like, so to speak, like what you're looking for. It's an idea of people are going to complain no matter what, and the people that don't look at the bigger picture with like how people like communicate and connect and all that, they're just going to say bah humbug to it, and it's just not going to really, they don't understand it.
You know, the funny thing is, it's never been easier to complain, just like it's never been easier to communicate. So, you know, up until recent years, where now a Twitter post can get you canned from your job and get you fired and ruin your life, you know, you could go on the internet and complain anonymously, say just about anything you want, and no one would care.
Right.
I mean, now it's different, and I personally think it's stupid that people get fired and stuff for the things that they say. I mean, freedom of speech. I mean, you can debate me if you want, but unless someone's saying some really obscene things, just because they disagree with something political or whatever the case may or may not be, gives you no grounds to fire them or ruin their life, because it makes you no better than them.
Right. I mean, like, actually at earlier this week at the YAL thing, the Young Americans for Liberty, we had a giant beach ball set up, and we were letting people grab an expo marker and write whatever they want there. And people were writing obscene stuff. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get the podcast in trouble or anything like that. But
give a generalization of, like, was it race things? Was it?
There were race things. There were there were good things. There were bad things, and our only rule, because of the way the club is ran, is that you can't, no death threats, and you can't write you can write misogynistic things. And one of the things that I wrote just to stir the pot was vaccines cause autism.
Oh jeez.
On another note, another thing I wrote was use your blinker. Just generalized statements, and people were just writing cuss words on there, and they were just going buck wild on it, and they were drawing things. We had a swastika made out of penises.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's kind of the level that things were going at, and the idea was that don't let the government take away your freedom of speech, and that's what it was. But going back to the point you were making, I agree that people shouldn't, to a certain extent, if you go online and say you yell fire in a crowded movie theater, that's a problem. But the issue is people generalize it, and they just see social media bad, job good, and that's what it really is. I mean, they overgeneralize, and then you have nothing to go off of besides, I've had to, for my jobs, for my last internship, I was told by the HR people, they went through all my social media profiles and anything that was public. They went through it and looked through it to see if I was posting something that would go against their values as a company. And I agree to a certain extent that you should honor the values of your company, but
that's a little obscene for me personally.
Well, I mean, I agree with it, but if you've got good values for your company, that's great. But you also, because you want people to work for you that understand the values and agree with your values, because it makes you look better as a company. But the company is not the person, and the person is not the company. And so people struggle with this idea that, I can go onto Twitter right now as we're live in the podcast and write obscene, horrible things, and I might lose a job or two from it. I don't think that it doesn't detract from my work ethic. It doesn't detract from my ability to do a job. It doesn't take away my knowledge on a topic that I would be hired for. I mean, and if I go into there are plenty of people that in my honest opinion, that I know a lot of people that they're just awful human beings. They're just really mean, crass, and really bad people. But they know what they're doing, and they do a good job, and they don't bring their opinions into the workplace. And there's a reason why you post it on Twitter and not on the bulletin board in the lunchroom. I mean, so I think to disciplinary action and social media discipline, it as Sir Clerk said, it should be a case by case basis, and it shouldn't be just immediate termination, because it's not you're bad mouthing the company. You're still showing up to work. You're still doing your job. You're still collecting your paycheck, just being a normal person. But what you do when you're not at work isn't really the company's business, so to speak.
Right. So, and one of the things I've never really disagreed about with the Air Force, but I understand because it's the military, is they say even when you're not in uniform, you still represent the Air Force with everything that you do. 24, the saying is, no matter what, 24/7, you're still an airman, which I get, but I don't agree with, because like anyone else, when you're off work, it's you time. You're you again. Even military people, when they're off the clock, go back to being who they actually are. If everyone thinks that we just go home and go to sleep mode because we're not in uniform anymore,
they view you as robots almost.
Yeah, people do. We're humans too. We live our own unique lives. There are some people who do some really weird stuff. Nothing that's bad. Nothing that would get them, in trouble. It's just, we'll just say it's weird. But, that's fine. But that's why the idea that, I am an airman 24/7, but everything that I do reflects the Air Force is not the case. At least in my mind, it shouldn't be. That's why in my channel description, I have a statement that says I'm not getting paid by the Air Force to make these videos. I do not speak on behalf of the Air Force. I speak on behalf of me and me alone. Because if I was actually claiming to do that, everything that I have said up until this point, I could be held accountable for. And I guarantee you this, my old videos being as cringy as I was, swearing a lot more, being unfortunately misinforming people unintentionally, could have gotten me into a lot of trouble.
Right.
But it didn't, because I speak on behalf of me and me alone. Even the military understands that. There are some things that you can't go online and say, but even the military understands that the person is separate from the uniform. And because I can't think of a real-world example, I can think of a good one that's relative. I've always referenced this show, but it works in a lot of cases. Family Guy. I was watching an episode where Brian got it back into Twitter after a very long period of time. And he was going to the movies, and he was going to see, I forget what it was called. I think it was Ride Along or something. And
a movie, yeah. So he's going to see a movie.
He was going to see a movie, and he made an off-color tweet, meaning a racist tweet, but it was a joke. And he says, I'm going to go see this movie. He's like, just kidding, I'm white and went to college. That was the joke, that he wasn't going to see a black movie because he's educated and wouldn't find it funny. Right. Now, to me, it's a terrible joke. In every sense, it's not funny and it's racist. But is it worth getting mad about? No, it's not. It's just a stupid joke. But what happened in the show is everyone was retweeting it. People were sending him death threats. People got him fired from his job. He couldn't go outside without being harassed. His family was being harassed for being around him. And at what point are you actually worse than the person who made said tweet or said joke?
Right, right.
Probably right away if you're sending him death threats or telling him to off himself.
Yep.
Because everyone, I don't care who you are, everyone is a little bit hateful. Everyone is a little bit... I'm not going to say racist because that's probably not true, but everyone's a little bit hateful and spiteful. Everyone thinks off-color stuff from time to time. If you're going to say you don't, you're a liar. Because we're all naturally hateful to some extent. So to sit there and always think you have the moral high ground because I wouldn't say something like that, no, you're just keeping your mouth closed.
Right.
You just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. I want to hit on a comment that Character Plus 44 just said. What if you wrote a tweet when you were drunk and 15? In that specific case with being drunk and being 15, I would say if you're looking into a job and they're looking that far back at your tweets, then not even if it's a problem, but if they don't hire you on that, they should let you know, and then you can like go and just ask them, like, take into context what, like, how long ago it was, who I was then, what qualifications have I earned since that point, and what have I tweeted since that point. So that's kind of my thought on that, is like there has to be accountability on both sides, where obviously, like, it's like if I tweet something awful out, like, but then I deny it or I try to delete the tweet or whatnot, like, I'm just trying to cover my own ass. But whereas, like, if I don't delete the tweet, like, because I mean, Matt and I, we can go back down our Twitter and see some really dumb shit we used to tweet. Sorry,
yes.
But there has to be accountability on both sides, and where they, like, as a company, what they should do is look at it where they see the time frame, they see what's happened since then. Like, they can even reference your resume in there and stuff like that and do all that, but they should be accountable enough to at least, like, if they're going to hire you, if they're going to take you through the interview process, they should, if it's such a problem for them that they're think about not hiring you because of it, bring it up and talk to the person who made the tweet about it. Whereas, like,
don't just say we're not going to hire you because of the things you post on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, but not say what it is you did. You know what I'm saying? It'd be the same thing if, say, say you and I was mad at you for something that you posted on Facebook, but I didn't tell you what I was mad at you about. I just said, I'm mad about something you posted. And you say, okay, what I post? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm just mad at you. I refuse to talk to you.
That's just dumb. That's just arrogance.
Right, but that's the same thing. It's just if they refuse to hire you but not tell you what it is that you said that upset them, then it makes no sense. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I mean, for the record, most of the things that I post on Twitter are either replies to Matt or retweets of memes. I mean, like...
Right, but back in the day, like, really, like, years ago, me and Steve were, like, sitting next to each other on Twitter every day in school. We would say a lot of really stupid things. Nothing hateful or racist, but just things that if they got posted now would get me a lot of unnecessary attention.
Hey, Matt. Hashtag Matt Martin 2020.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep, I'm looking at the photo right now. It's just old memes. But
Really
if you go down,
memes.
If you go down Matt's Twitter feed far enough, you'll probably find.
Don't give them any ideas.
I'm not. I mean, there's a hashtag crazy shit. That's a hashtag I did. Yeah, I don't even know anything there, but anyways,
the Frosted Flakes one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That one. If we posted that now, we would get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, see, we posted that in 2015 and no one cared.
Right. Exactly.
But if we did it now, oh my goodness, the things that people would say if we posted that one out, because it goes beyond Frosted Flakes. But he knows what I'm talking about. It's some Frosted Flakes something. Damn.
Yeah. It actually references an old Vine.
Like, it does. Yeah.
It
doesn't matter
in the box? Frosted Flakes. Damn.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's just people don't care about the context of what you're talking about. It's the same thing with people, when, the racist people or the ones who would get upset when say, a white person uses the N-word that ends in A, not ER, in a song, an actual song. Like, you can't say a word. Like, it's a song, man. It's part of the song. I'm not saying, I'm not excusing it, but at the same time, I'm like, well, what does it matter? It's just a song.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, is this really worth getting upset over? To me, it's not. It doesn't matter. But, you know, the obvious defense that people give me is that, well, you're not a person of color, so you can't say that, which, again, is fair. But at the same time, I still think my argument of it's a song and it doesn't really matter and there is no hateful context of how it's being used still relatively stands.
Yep.
But even still.
Yeah. But anyways, we kind of got off topic there.
We do that all the time.
Yep.
I think we should probably just stop trying to stay on topic because eventually we'll get off. It happens.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the way things go. I mean,
yeah, it's springboarding.
Yeah, exactly. But what, did you have anything to say?
Not past my original one. No. I think when it comes to the communication standards that we're seeing now, it could even go back to only a few years ago. I mean, think about it. We didn't have the only social media app that had stories a few years ago was Snapchat. Now Facebook and Instagram have them. Discord was not a thing. Skype was a thing, but anyone who uses Skype used it back in the day knew it was a CPU whore.
Yep.
And that you only wanted to run it when it was actually being used.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could even go back to maybe a few years ago to see how far it's come.
Yeah, I mean...
Because back, or even, for streaming, for example, if you wanted to be a streamer a few years ago, you had to have the money for it.
Right. Oh, YouTube has a story thing?
It does, yeah. It has a story thing.
I did not see that.
It also has a community post that I post on quite often.
Yeah.
But yeah, every social media, even YouTube now has a story thing.
Yeah, so everyone can see what everyone's doing. Access to information.
But would you say it's a bad thing?
I mean, yes and no, depending on the context, because everything is based on perspective and context. I mean, if you go onto someone's story and you see you see them bumping coke off of a hooker's butt, you see something like that, and you're like, "Oh, I don't like that. I don't agree with that." But you don't know oh, they're at a party promoting this event and doing this, and oh, it wasn't even coke, it was sugar. You don't know the context surrounding that situation. You just see that little 10-second blurb that people post.
No, that could be an argument for all the politics of this was a hate crime, but even still.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, everything relies on context, and with social media, there's really not enough context to draw full pictures. If you saw what Matt and I posted back in the day, you'd be like, wow, you guys are idiots. You guys are dumb. But then you see what we were doing back in the day and what we're doing now and how we were acting back in the day based on what was going on in society. Do you remember YOLO swag? When YOLO was a thing? Yeah. That was a thing that people did, and that was cool.
And me and Steve thought we were edgy and cool because we would say it only to make fun of people.
Sarcastically, yeah.
Yes.
And then we actually started using it just randomly. We're like, oh my god, we become what we swore to destroy.
Yeah, it became a bad thing because I became a total edgelord and you became, well, whatever you'd want to call yourself.
Just a moron.
Well, yeah, that's fair. And Mike, you are correct. I'm still an idiot, but difference is now I get paid for it.
You don't get paid for anything.
Yeah, I do.
I know. But anyways.
But yeah, it's very interesting how even going back a few years, you could actually see not necessarily a huge shift, but technological communication has changed probably more within the last 15 to 20 years than anything else prior to that. Because when we mentioned back when you had your friend Nick on, the biggest invention prior to World War II was the steam engine. Mm-hmm. It all goes back to one thing necessarily shoehorning in everything else, or being the catalyst that creates everything else that supersedes it.
Yep.
So
exactly.
What would you think was the key thing that helped everything else that we use today stand along? Would you say it was the internet? Would you say maybe it was initially the TV? Maybe the radio?
I would say the internet, because the radio and the TV, they're one-way mediums where you watch them, you listen to them, but you can't put in directly live on the spot.
You just ingest.
Whereas with the internet, right now, all of you guys are watching us. Me and Matt are having a conversation, and you guys are commenting in as we speak on the points that we're speaking about, like
it's near
live,
real time.
Near real time, exactly. And that's insane. Like, I mean, it's just crazy. Like, and that's kind of that's I think where the big line was drawn, because like, let's just look at going back to the Facebook stories thing. Growing up, I have photo albums that my mom, she took on film, got them printed out, put them into a photo album when I was a child and I was a baby and all that. And there are people now, I've seen tweets about this where instead of creating photo albums, there are people creating emails for their children that they're sending memories, photos, Snapchats, videos to this email. And then when they reach age 18, they give them the password and the username to this email, and then they can go through all their memories, and it's all right there on the internet forever. Whereas
that's pretty cool. I never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it on Reddit the other day, but that's besides the point. But whereas in our case, until I was 12 years old, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have any of that stuff. And so it's with the internet superhighway coming out, it allows people to connect really quickly, and it allows people to go a lot further back than you initially planned on it back in the day. Because I can back in the day, the only recollection I could have of let's say we want to look up Robin Williams' life. It's all on the internet. But if the internet wasn't around, if we wanted to find out that information, we'd have to go to a library. We'd have to go to his family. We'd have to go
maybe a documentary was made or something.
You'd have to put in a lot more effort to get the results you want. When now, I literally, as we're live here, I just scrolled back on my Twitter feed to 2012. That was 7 years ago. I don't remember what I was doing in 2012. I don't even remember why I was on Twitter in 2012. But yeah. It's there, and not anybody, but people can see it. It's just there. So it's once the internet came out, it made a lot of information a lot more accessible, and people have exploited that, so to speak.
It was the first two-way street instead of just the pure ingestion or distribution.
Exactly.
So there was a way you could input and get the output. I mean, for example, when you said that if you wanted to read about Robin Williams, you have to do all the other things prior to the internet. Whereas sometimes when I'm bored, I'll just go read about celebrities and read about the interesting facts about them because I can. There's no other reason besides the pure fact that I can do that. So I think that's why whenever I looked at it, I mean, to think about how fast technology moves, I bought the CPU that I'm running right now is the i5 9600K. Right? It came out maybe 2 or 3 months ago. There's already a newer version of it, the 9700K. It's already outdated as of a few months ago. There's always something new coming out, especially with computers. Yeah. But even still, that's how fast this stuff moves. Right. I had the new thing for a week.
And so it's more or less about instead of trying to always be relevant and always be on top of that stuff, because you're just going to burn yourself out doing that, to be completely honest.
I don't have the money for that.
Right, exactly. You're going to burn yourself out financially, emotionally, physically, and it's just not worth it to try to do that. That's why I drive a car from 2011, and it's 2019. Like, I don't need to get a new car every year, but I know people that do, and they're like obsessed with it, so to speak.
In 20 years, kids will read their parents' dumb tweets instead of listening to them talk. Yeah, unfortunately, that's probably true. Or the memes you've seen of, I found a picture of your grandfather instead of your picture in like that old black and gray tuxedo.
Yeah.
It's a kid with the dog filter from Snapchat.
Right, exactly.
Also, understand something. I want to touch on what Jonathan said. We and Steve read the comments and actually pick things out very often. You guys are not just numbers to us. We read them. The reason I don't discuss military in depth here is because my co-host is not military, and it would alienate him from the podcast as a co-host. Yeah, we more than often read everything you guys say. We're actively looking at the chat with every new comment. So please understand that we're not viewing you guys as a number. We just don't want to make the content of this podcast purely one-sided, because then it does nothing for the other person. If you'd like to ask me questions, please reach me on my social media. And sorry about that, Steve. Go ahead.
You're good. I totally just lost what you were saying. But yeah, I'll just go off of what you're saying real quick. But like, I'm not in the military. I have no real affiliation to the military. I know people in the military, but we started this podcast as a
catharsis,
kind of as like a catharsis to like, we're using Matt's channel, which is military based, but that's more or less just a medium to have it on. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it really doesn't matter like what channel we use, but we're just using his because he's got all the equipment, he's got all the information we need, and we can make it work from his channel.
It's already established. There's no reason to start it on a new one. Yeah. And it's totally okay. We're definitely not upset or mad at you. We're just trying to break it down as to why we run it the way we do.
Right. And we're not trying to be rude. We're just like totally we have an agenda. Every couple of minutes, Matt, we should definitely like update the chat for the new viewers to be like, hey, this is the topic we're talking about.
I could probably program some commands in to do that.
Yeah.
It would just take
that'll be good. Yeah. We can do that later, but
even still.
Yeah. But all right, back to the topic at hand of communications ruining technology, or are they just overreacting?
Technology ruining communication.
Whatever. I'm dyslexic.
Would you say that? So I think I can always reference memes or common things that I see. Remember I seen the pictures of a kid with his grandmother or grandfather at a dinner table out in public, and the kid's on their phone instead of looking at their grandparents. Yeah. And everyone's like, "You don't know how good you have it, kid," or all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When I see those pictures, it upsets me, not because of the kid or the grandparent, because people are upset at the wrong person.
Right.
The kid is only going off what they know and how to behave in a situation. I view my phone a lot publicly as a means to get out of a conversation that I want no part of.
Right.
And I'm not saying the kid's doing that, but he's probably not told or was taught how to behave with an elder in a situation like that. Is it really the child's fault? Is it really?
I would say no. My thing with that is like it goes back to context where like a lot of the time, if I'm ever like, whenever I have dinner with my family, yes, I always have my phone on me, but usually my family and I will be talking about something, and I'll like, they'll say like, oh, hey, like, did you see this? And I'm like, oh yeah, I saw this. Like, and they're like, oh, can you look this up real quick? Like, I want to know like what the score on the basketball game is. Like, that might have been in that image. That might have been what that kid was doing. He might have just been like, his grandmother was like, hey, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow? And he like, instead of being like, I don't know, maybe cloudy, maybe sunny, we don't know. The kid's just going to pull it up on his phone, give it to his grandparents, and be like, there you go. Now you have your answer. Like, I think that's really what it would be. And like, that's what I think, idealistically, that's what I think it should be based on. But like, I mean, I'll give you an example. Over spring break, back in podcast number 3? Yeah, it was podcast number 3. Because I had my dad and I had my friend Flo on. Flo was staying with me over spring break, and she was like, we're both on our phones, and we're like doing that. And my mom would be like, "Oh, are you talking to each other?" It's like, no, we're just on our phones. And to us, as a younger generation, it's societally accepted. To their generation, like, they want to have, as my mother calls it, meaningful conversation instead of like having somebody go on their phone the entire time. And like, they were just kind of throwing playful jabs and joking around with us. But like, I know people that genuinely get upset when they're called out. Like, I do, like, me personally, I try my hardest not to be on my phone all the time, because to me it's just it is kind of rude. Like, so
I
I would
guess
just say,
yeah, I mean, everything can always go back to the idea of context first.
mm-hmm.
So, for example, when I'm out with some friends, or you know, if I'm at, not work, because I can't have my phone at work, but if I'm out with, say with you, you and I have a pretty good idea of when it's time to put the phone down and talk to one another. Right. For you and I, we have that. But with other right. people, if say we're out at dinner, I'm with some friends, and we're actually. It's one thing to be waiting for the meal and you're on your phone because it's a way to kill time. But when we're actually eating and talking, I don't like when people are on their phone personally, because, we're eating, we're talking. There's no reason to be on your phone unless it's an emergency right. or something like that. Or, when I go to D&D on Sundays and, instead of playing the game, people are on their phone doing whatever. Now, I'm guilty of that too. But point still standing, though, is just it all goes back to the time and a place for it. But I don't in a situation like what I originally mentioned, the kid and the grandparent, the kid's not necessarily wrong unless he was told this is how you should behave for an elder. My grandparents use their phone all the time. At least my grandmother does. Right.
Yeah. I mean, with like, my thing on that is also I agree, the 2005 version opposed to the EA trash. I agree.
Yeah, the re-release was terrible. Even now with all the updates, I would still not give a single dime to EA. I refuse.
Yeah. And I see that comment, Sir Clerk. I'll get that after I get this point. But my thing is, I'll be on my phone, but if somebody reaches out to me and they want to have a conversation, like my mom, my dad, my friend, whoever, if they want to, if they approach me and I'm having a conversation with you, don't pull your phone out, okay, that's fine. So my rule with that is, if you're directly conversing with me, I will not be on my phone. I will be polite. I'll be responding to you and I'll be listening to you. But if I'm not being directly
part of the conversation,
if I'm not being part of the conversation, I don't feel like I need to be. Whereas my parents are very traditional, so to speak. And they're it's just a sign of respect to even if you're not a part of the conversation, to just act like you're there with everyone, which I understand that as well. And I do that when I can, but there are times when I will pull up my phone and look something up, or I'll get a notification.
I don't necessarily agree personally.
Yeah. Right. Sir Clerk, yes, I have been to a dinner where if you pick up your phone, you have to pay the bill. Actually, my friends at school, because we're all broke, we joke around with it, but last semester we went to Mooney's. For those of you that don't know, so it's a Western New York thing, but it's basically a place where you get really good mac and cheese. Yeah, it's a really good mac and cheese joint.
There's a lot of variety. Anything you could think of, you could probably get it there.
Mm-hmm. And we were all joking around. We're all right, first person to pick up their phone pays the bill, because we'd joke around oh, you millennials always on your phones, blah blah blah, all that. But we all set our phones down in the middle, and we just there were times when it was just tense, because people would just want to be everybody at the table was in our age range, and they wanted to pick up their phone to check something, or someone's phone would vibrate and be no, and the only rule we made was that if you got a call, because emergencies happen, and call me when you can, or you'll get a voicemail and stuff like that, but no checking social media and stuff on that. But unfortunately nobody picked up their phone, so everyone had to pay their own bill. But yeah, I have done that. Matt, have you done that?
Honestly, no.
We'll have to do that sometime.
Mostly because a lot of my friends, people in the military, are very anal about their money. So no one would ever agree to, I'll pay for someone else's meal under a gross pretense. So no, I have never met people, for example, I hate saying this, but even people that I'm really good friends with keep tabs on the money that they owe people. So for example, if I wanted dinner and my buddy was going to Subway, he wouldn't ever get me. He'd be like, no, you're paying for it. Or, if he got me one time, he's like, you owe me $10, or he'd be like, you owe me 10 or 12 bucks. I'm like, and for you and I never keep tabs for you for anything. No, I just don't care.
It's at least with you and me, Matt, it's oh, you bought me a drink at the gas station, like I'll get you back, or like, oh, you drove me around, here's like a 10 for gas, or like, oh, I'll spot your next meal. Like it's not so much about the money, it's just about the principle of like, don't be rude to the person that's doing you a favor. Like,
yeah,
like don't like, because I know people that are like, you owe me $7.40. Excuse me, like,
yeah, I know.
like, and like,
I hate that personally.
Yeah,
it'd be one thing if I owed you like any more than like $10, I could see. Yeah. But after that, it's to me, it's like, okay, come on now.
Yeah. Like if it's a large sum of money, like you loan somebody $150 so they can like pay their rent or something, and
yeah,
like,
they
swear to them that you're going to pay them back, and then you see them buying things and stuff. You're like, hey, what about the money you owe me? Like, and it's not even to be mean. It's just like it's the principle of
you owe me money.
I did you a favor. I expect you to repay me for said favor. Like, but within like at school here, like, everyone buys everyone alcohol, and like everyone wants to buy weed and stuff, and like and all the stoners, they deal in mixed drinks and smoke ups for like their currency essentially. Like a friend of mine, he went to the store, bought my buddy a bottle of vodka, and so he's just like, oh, like I'll spot you on like a few mixed drinks, and they're like, all right, that's fine. And like I get it, some people prefer to have the cash, but like if you're gonna spend your cash on the same thing anyways, just take the product instead of the cash. Like,
you know, I always sometimes forget when I'm with certain people that I'm not with you, because there are some times where I spot people just because I'm feeling nice, because that's how I am. I like to, you know, do things for people. You know, I remember, for example, one time when my buddy was feeling sad, like he was going through a lot because we were TDY for a while, and he was missing his wife and his kids and all this other kind of stuff. So I bought him a bottle of his favorite liquor and some shot glasses. And you know, other instances where I bought someone food or whatever on the spot, and then, you know, we're out somewhere, I'm like, I'm not trying to spend money right now, but, you know, they wouldn't spot me like $10. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, right? Like, really? Like, I look like, and you try not to be an asshole about it, like,
because I understand you didn't ask me to cover you, but I did it willingly. You know what I mean? Like, I was being nice.
It's a favor, return the favor. Like,
yeah. It's because that's happened to me a lot, where I've covered someone's meal because I'm feeling nice, or, you know, for my crew at work, I bought pizza for everyone numerous times when I'm feeling nice or I'm in a good mood. You know, something good happens to me, like, you know, for example, when I was recently, when I hit 10,000 subscribers, I was happy, obviously. So I bought my friends the new DLC for Dead by Daylight. Granted, I didn't buy it, but I bought it for them, and it was like $5 a piece, something crazy. Yeah. But, you know, that's the kind of stuff I do when I'm in a good mood. You know, when I go back to crew, you know, I might do something like that later. I'm not doing it right now, but it's small things like that.
Yeah.
That I personally enjoy doing. No one asks me to, but I still like to do that anyway.
Right.
And I guess it's just the difference between being in service and college. I mean, you guys joke that you're broke as all hell and things like that, which arguably is which is true, totally true. So, I mean, for us, you know, the common thing is military is underpaid, so everyone's completely anal retentive about their money. Well, at least when it comes to other people. Some people I've seen are really stupid with their cash. Hence the people who buy Mustang with 30% APR and all that other crap. But
yeah, like
the obvious jokes.
Yeah, that scares me.
Yeah, no, it's stupid. It's really stupid. But I think that's funny when people tell me, or when people post all the time. It's usually military members that say, "Oh, the military's underpaid. We should get more money." And I'm sitting here living on my own, single, fine. I'm like, no, you're not. You're just irresponsible. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, whenever I've heard that we're always doing that, or we're underpaid, I'm like, no, not really. Because, I mean, on paper, without having to pay for medical and other kind of stuff, I make almost $50,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Which is pretty good for being 23 years old.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to worry about those other costs. So a lot of that's pocket money. So whenever I hear that, I'm like, nah, no. You just don't have obscene amounts of money to go do whatever you want whenever you want. Or to not live in a fancy house with a fancy car. So you got to get in an apartment and drive a decent car, which at your age, for most people, is more than acceptable.
Right.
I just never understood that. I mean, I could say for some places, you know, Hawaii, Vegas, where things are really expensive, they don't pay us a whole lot. So in some places I could see it. But absolutely, we're not underpaid people, at least on the whole. Mm-hmm. I think people are just complain too much.
People love to complain. I mean, that's what it is.
Oh, yeah. That's why when I'm looking into like apartment reviews, I try not to take the reviews too seriously or into consideration because people will complain about everything but give no praise when it's due.
Right.
But one thing goes wrong and they're on the wrong.
They're up
Twitter.
in arms, getting the militia ready.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's this one thing didn't get catered to me, so everything's terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, should we go into our tertiary topic, Matt?
Yeah, we can. I'm trying to find out or trying to figure out what you mean by that comment, King. But you not that broke kids and African parents eat dirt for dinner.
But you're not that broke. Kids in Africa and parents eat dirt for dinner.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. But at the same time, there is absolutely nothing that Steve and I can do about that.
Right. Like.
That's the thing is that's secondhand guilt for being born in a different country.
Yeah.
As much as Steve and I wholeheartedly agree that is terrible, there is really absolutely nothing that we can do about it. As much as it is terrible. I know that sounds horrible, like I don't care. I absolutely do care. But what can I do about it?
It's actually a good segue into our topic, ability versus blame.
Yeah, no, it is. That's why when people tell me that, you know, I should be sad because I have all this. What about the people who are homeless or who have this or have that? I understand that. I totally do. But at the same time, because by that standard, that means I can never be sad or complain about anything ever because of the things I do have.
You're supposed to be grateful for what you have and anything else. But like, everybody has bad days. Everyone has days that they're just not feeling it and they're just down on their luck. And
yeah,
if you tell people they can't complain about that, you're just gonna piss them off. I mean,
ultimately, yes. Your only thing you're gonna achieve is upsetting people. And that's why when I'm not mad at you that you said that. It's just it doesn't make any sense to guilt us over that because ultimately Steve and I can't fly to Africa and feed children. If I could afford to, I probably would. Fact of the matter is my little E4 lonesome can't do that.
And my little I have no job and I have college loans
can't do that either.
Can't do that either. Yeah.
So, I mean, when people say you can't be sad about this or that, okay, you say I can't be sad about it, fine. What are you doing about it, or what should I do about it, reasonably? The answer to both of those things is you can't do anything. Because the people who can make those changes are likely not me and Steve, or you, or any of the rest of the 99%.
Right.
It's not us.
Yep.
Because the topic we have now is communication, not communication,
accountability versus rightful blame.
Right. So one of the things that I see a lot on my Facebook or Twitter, because we kind of touched on this in podcast number 3, which is, that was number 3, right? Yes. No, it was 4. Because 3 was me by myself. Anyway.
That's right. Yeah, it was 4.
Anyway, we had the millennials versus baby boomers topic. And one of the things that I see now more than anything, and this is actually me going after millennials. Mm-hmm. But the millennials always complain that everything that's wrong with our current standard of society is from the previous generation. Like, you know, I saw stats about a girl like yelling at her mom because society's like this, and you are the one at fault for it, and made her sad because she blamed her mom for society. And I'm thinking about that, and I said, what did your mom do to contribute to that? Nothing. Right. Your mom just lived during that period of time. The people who really make, in my opinion, the big societal changes or the creation of that time are not the 99%.
It's the 1%.
It's the 1% that changes society as it's deemed necessary, who create these changes.
And all them.
Yeah. So when you blame a whole generation of people for the errors of their ways, you're blaming literally way too many people, reasonably. Because I can't blame my dad's generation or my grandfather's. I know what they did. They worked. That's all they did. I can't put it on their shoulders. They just happened to be born during that time.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, you can complain about it, which I understand because I'm saying that, you know, everyone complains. But there comes a point where you're just putting the blame on people for absolutely no reason because there's nothing they can do about it or nothing that they would have been able to do about it.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Unless you are like an oil tycoon in Dubai, or unless you're like Jeff Bezos or like a high government figure, like you're anybody else, like you don't really have all that much pull or sway on the government unless you're like a massive stockbroker and all that. Like unless you're like a real estate mogul, like you don't have the power, you don't have the ability, the influence to sway that in such a way that like it's directly your fault. And I think it's like people need to step back and realize, like, yes, it was the generation, but it wasn't the generation of like
everybody,
your mom and dad, like your literal mom and dad. It was a generation of the people that were above them in that generation,
the ones who were in charge during that time.
Exactly.
And I understand that everything is relative. Your way might be someone's best day. I understand that. But if you're always going to live by that mantra, you're saying that no one ever has the right to complain about anything ever, because someone always has it worse. And then you have a group of people holding in their feelings because apparently they can't have no right to be sad because someone else has it worse. And what happens when you make people bottle up their feelings?
Bad things.
Really bad stuff kind of happens when you make people do that. So we're not trying to downplay the fact that people have it worse. We totally understand that. It's just that, to some extent, there is little anyone else can do about it. Because, the people who joke that I'd rather cry in a Lamborghini than on a bicycle, things like that, yeah, I understand that, but, the person has a Lamborghini. Is it theirs? Do they owe money, or are they crying because they can't afford to pay off the Lamborghini? Are they going broke because of that Lamborghini? Or do they just steal it, and they're just crying in it because they know they're going to jail for it?
Or are they crying because, like, their grandmother died and they're upset about it? Like,
right.
Context.
That's like saying you can't be upset that your grandmother died because someone else lost their grandmother and their grandfather that same day. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because it goes back to the idea of one-upping someone. For example, everyone hates this. It doesn't matter who you are. Everyone hates this. You talk to someone, you're having a bad day, and, you're upset, and then someone's like, well, this happened to me. Mm-hmm. And then you're just like, oh, okay. I mean, whatever. I wasn't trying to get one-upped. I'm sorry you think your life sucks more than mine does at this very moment in time. I'm just trying to confide in you. I'm having a bad time. Right. But if you feel the need to one-up me with sadness, then that's cool too, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's had that happen. And no matter who you are, that really gets on your nerves because there's absolutely no reason to do that.
Mm-hmm. But another thing, sometimes people don't intentionally mean to one-up you. People are giving you an example of when they were having a bad day, and as to relate to yours. And some people, I'm not saying this in every case, because a lot of the time it's blatantly obvious when they're just one-upping you, where they're just trying to relate to you and you just misinterpret what they're saying.
Right, yeah. Because, there's a lot of times when someone's confiding in me, and I relate a lot of what they're going through to say, yeah, this happened to me too, so I understand how you're feeling. It goes back to how you word it. That's right. Like, when someone's saying, like, yeah, I lost my grandmother, and then I'm saying, well, my mom died. Or, I lost my mom. How do you think I feel? Stuff like that. There's absolutely no reason to say that. What can be said is, yeah, I understand how you feel. I lost my mom to something like this, so I completely get how you feel. Here's what I think you should do, or here's how I reacted in the situation to give you an idea of what may happen. It goes back to how you word these things and what genuinely you're putting into the conversation.
Exactly.
Because I've had people do that where my mom was sick, and, because it didn't look like she was going to make it, or it was still kind of up in the air. People have said, well, I lost my mom years ago. At least she's still here. And I'm like, oh, geez, that makes me feel so much better. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It doesn't make anything any better.
Exactly. Like, you're not helping the situation. You're just kind of tooting your own horn for the sake of, hey, I have it worse than you, F you.
Which, interestingly enough, I want to ask, where do you think that mentality comes from? Just people who just are loving the idea of being sad all the time, or just someone who wants to feel superior, even if it's based off, I'm sadder than you?
I think it's a superiority complex where, like, you could tell them, like, hey, I got a raise at work day. It's like, yeah, well, I got a raise 2 months ago. It's like, I got my money before you did. Like,
or I still make more money than you even with that raise.
Right. People are just like, they're just like narcissists out there that just, they want to feel superior to you in every way possible, and nothing you can do can ever come close to the glorious spectacle that is their life, or the sad, pathetic spectacle that is their life.
Yeah. I mean that's why, when for example, like when I bought my first car, when I bought the Focus, I had people tell me, like, you should have just bought the RS instead, or you should have got the RS like I did, or you should have bought this car like I did. And I'm just kind of sitting here like, well, it's my first car, not my last car, and I'm happy with it. It's my first one. It's not a bad car. But I had constantly had people saying just that you should have done this, you should have done that, or I bought this, or I have a better car. I'm like, I don't care.
Everybody thinks they're like, a lot of the narcissists will always think they're better than you, no matter what. No matter what you say, like, hey, I got married this year. Oh, that's great. I've been married for 10 years and I'm so happy. Like, all right, I get it. You're happy and married and you're kind of a prick. Like, that's really all they're telling you. And they're just like, they're obsessed with the idea of being better than people because frankly, they're probably insecure as all hell.
Oh, likely that's what it always goes back to.
It always comes back to insecurity because they feel the need to address their own like woes or their own successes and they need to feel validated.
And I think that's one of the things that really sucks too. Is just that there's been a lot of moments where whenever I've been like genuinely happy about something, you know, like when I hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm not gonna say who, but it's someone was just like, I hit that years ago, lol, and I don't even upload.
It's like, cool. Well, I still upload and I still hit it. Like, congratulations. Right. Like, it's my milestone, not yours. Eat it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, and if people feel the need to like say that and do that. Just ignore them. Ignore the haters, mate.
Ignore 'em, mate.
Oh, yeah.
That's not a knife. That's a knife. But
yeah, I mean, it just comes back to like a superiority complex due to insecurity.
I've always been kind of curious where that mindset breeds, but I guess you could easily enough said you could just say it's insecurity and call it that.
Right. Yeah.
Dab on the haters. Oh my goodness. I can never take anyone seriously who says dab in a serious context. But that's just me.
Yeah. The only dabs I'm taking are fat dabs, and I'm gonna get baked as crap on it. Whoa.
Anyway, I think we don't want to drag this podcast out. As I said before, me and Steve are a little out of it today, but we'll leave the floor open for you guys for any requests, comments, concerns, gripes, you know, mostly just suggestions for any topics we can touch on real quick. This is the part of the podcast we'll probably do every podcast where for maybe 15, 30 minutes, we will just let people give questions, you know, suggest things we can talk about, and then we'll call it from there. So this is the open floor time, I'll call it, where you guys just ask anything you want to ask. So if you have anything you want to ask or say, now's the time. Hopefully I don't make a meme out of myself again. Most nostalgic game for us. Ooh. That's an easy one for me, so I'll let Steve answer that for us because mine's really obvious.
Nostalgic game, I know yours, but
yeah,
nostalgic games for me go back like way back to like it depends on really the platform, so I'll go by console. Mobile gaming, I'm gonna say Pokemon Red or Blue because that was my first like big Pokemon, like Game Boy Color, all that.
I had Yellow.
Yep. I had Red, Blue, Silver. My neighbors had Crystal, and I was so jealous because I wanted a Suicune.
I know. I love Suicune is gorgeous.
Yeah. And so with that, so next to that, there's let's see.
So you can go from let's say to your first count, like your handheld first,
right.
And then your first console. Like, did you have the N64?
All right, so I had PlayStation 1 was my first console.
Okay.
So I'd say one of my biggest nostalgic games with that was Twisted Metal 2.
Yeah.
Because I love that game, and it was I never had a memory card in the game. I never had a memory card for my first PlayStation.
So you had to restart every time?
I restarted every time, and so I played a game because I would play like Crash Bandicoot, and I would like try to beat the game, and like I would like get as far as I could, and I'd have to turn it off eventually. And
I had the same problem, man.
Yep. So Twisted Metal 2 would be for PS1 or Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, that one.
I mean, I love Warped, but 2 is still my favorite one.
See, I never really played 2. I only had 3 because that's just what I got when I got the PlayStation.
A lot of people would say 3 was the best one, but I still love 2 the most. So Crash Bandicoot 2 for PlayStation 1 for me. I also had an N64, and my greatest memories of the N64, I mean, a lot of them I definitely have, Pokemon Battle Stadium.
Okay, good one.
Star Wars Pod Racer. I loved that. That was so much fun. Star Wars Pod Racer. And then this cool thing you could do with your Game Boy, we could hook it up to the N64 and play it on your TV.
On TV. Yeah.
Yeah, I love doing that.
Yep. PlayStation 2. Yeah, PlayStation 2 for me would definitely be The Simpsons Hit and Run or Sly Cooper or Jak and Daxter or Ratchet and Clank. And any of those are all in the same category, but I would definitely say, just because I have such good memories playing it with my cousins, was Simpsons Hit and Run.
So for me, it's obvious. Everyone knows what my PlayStation 2 one was, and that's the original Devil May Cry. There's no comparison. I did not play GoldenEye, no. And then for PlayStation 2, I don't remember a lot of other games that we owned at the time. I had the original Xbox. The original Xbox. Now, a lot of people didn't know about this game. You might know about this one, Steve, because I showed it to you. The original MechAssault series.
Yeah,
I have so many memories of me and my cousin going to the arena and just going at it for hours. Or the Star Wars games that came out on the original Xbox on the big beefy controller.
Yep. Another one I just thought of. My uncle had when I was growing up, and so whenever we would have like Easter at his house, Super Mario on the SNES, and Power Rangers. That was actually a really big game for me because me and my cousins would just sit there and like it wasn't 2-player, it was a 1-player game, but we would just sit there for hours just making like fart jokes and like trying to beat the game, and like we'd like write down all these cheat codes and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, the first GTA for sure. GTA 3, the first 3D GTA.
That's a good one.
So for the next generation, Xbox 360. Oh, there's so many. Hard for me to really say. I think for me, it's got to be probably the game on Xbox 360 I probably has the most time in. As much as it's cliche, it's probably Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah,
probably one of the defining games for that generation.
I would say I wholeheartedly agree with you. I was actually playing it yesterday. I literally only got to the no Russian mission, which
I know
as traumatizing as it is. Yeah, but that's what I was doing, and as cringy as it'll sound, one of my favorite games, like in like middle and high school, playing it with my friends was Minecraft. Like
I remember
a lot of people are like, "Oh, Minecraft's crappy" and all that, but to me, it was a really, really good game because it free roam, build with whatever the heck you want, and you can play with your friends. So it was a really good, like, all around bring people together kind of game. And honestly, like PlayStation 3 and Xbox. Oh, Xbox, Halo Reach, Halo 3.
Yeah, the Halos for sure. Halo 2. Halo 2.
Yeah. Yep. That one I never really played because I never had the original Xbox, but anytime I went over to my friend Tyler's house, we would play Halo 2 split screen for hours.
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. So that'd be nostalgic for me. I really haven't played any. I haven't played any really of the newer games. One of my favorites though on like 360 and Xbox and stuff would be Forza.
Oh yeah.
That's what got you into GTRs.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be it for me.
I don't know about the current generation. No series have really stuck true with me in the newest iteration of consoles. I don't really know why. Just none of them really have.
Skyrim.
Okay, that's fair. The podcast has been going on for almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
But if anyone else has any other questions, again, this is open floor time. If anyone has anything else, but if not, we'll call it there. So
we'll give you another like 5-10 minutes, and then if there's nothing else that we really can go off of, we'll just cut it there.
Yep. We appreciate you guys stopping by. We've noticed that the podcasts have been able to retain much stronger viewership than initially started. The numbers initially were much more volatile, but now they're really consistent.
Yeah,
from
and thank you for that. I mean,
yeah, it's a good thing.
That's all because of you guys, and we're really, really grateful.
Yeah. I died at least 3 or 4 times during this platforming session playing Doom because I could not figure out for the life of me what I was supposed to be doing. Platforming as a gamer is my worst enemy. because I'm terrible at it. I mean, I already got past it. I've gotten way farther than this. I recorded at least 4 hours of the game.
I mean, if you just keep watching, you'll see him get past it. It just took him a while to get.
Yeah. So, I mean, I eventually did. It just took me a minute. But, I mean, you guys are only seeing about half of the gameplay footage I recorded. I recorded at least 4 hours because I know me and Steve can talk for a while, so I always overshoot because I don't like replaying it. Because if it hits the time limit on the full recording, it'll just replay from the beginning, which I don't like doing. So that's why I record for obscenely longer amounts of time. But most hated game, oh god. I never can really think of games I hate.
Yeah, I mean...
Maybe ones that, like, you could say aggravate you to no end. Like, okay, I'll kind of rephrase the question. A game, Steve, that you love, but aggravates you to no end. You love the game, but man, does it shoo off.
Honestly, a lot of my handheld games, actually, I'll say my most hated game is not any game specifically, but a game that I can't complete. And there were games I'd have my Game Boy where like I'm just like the developer never got past this part, so they just made it impossible to beat. That's why I'm failing at this. I'm not actually a bad gamer. It's just the developer never finished the game, which is completely obscene to think of, but that's how I justified my logic with all that.
I mean, there are some games I really hate the games nowadays where they're just ungodly grind fests, or they're so difficult that the common gamer can't get past them, or it's just not your genre. So but behind beating those levels though are the really cool things you want. Remember back in the day when if you beat the games on hard difficulties, you got like the really cool things you could do. So for example, for a Devil May Cry, it was unlimited devil trigger, so you could just sit in your powered up state the entire mission and just mow through people and just cheese the game. But to get that, you had to beat the game on the hardest difficulty possible, which by 2001 standards, that game was so hard. Now it's not anymore because it's 2019. But back in the day, Devil May Cry was ridiculed only because it was so difficult. That's why the second game is a lot easier, because that was the feedback they got from the first game, was it was way too hard. Right. So, but that was one of the cool things is you could get to the cool stuff, but you had to beat the harder difficulty. But that's the thing that sucks is you can't get the cool stuff unless you do that, and not everyone can do that. I can appreciate games that give you cool stuff, even if you can't beat it on its full retard hard mode.
That's why you have cheatcodecentral.com.
Right, but there's something to be said about games who don't use cheat codes anymore, because they don't. It's all modding now.
It's all modding, and it's all like pay to win. Like,
oh yeah,
if you want the best gear, you've got to pull out your credit card or mommy and daddy's credit card and just dish out $10-$20 and to get the good gear, like,
because you want to look cool. I mean, because no matter what in a game, I can understand people say cosmetics don't matter, because they don't matter. But I mean, I want my character to look cool. I want to look cool while I'm playing the game. You know what I mean?
But I'd rather like play the game and like slowly earn it rather than like.
But there are some games like Battlefront 2, the new iteration, where upon release it was impossible to get anything because it was locked behind a 4,000 hour grind wall.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or a $2,100 pay ceiling.
Yeah.
So there are some things where I don't care how much of a grinder you think you are. Obscene is obscene, and that's definitely the king of that case.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's something to be said about games where there's cool benefits to beating the game on the hardest difficulty, but you could still get all the cool stuff even if you don't. Because unlike games where Dark Souls, where it's made to be hard, not every game has to be unforgiving.
Right.
Because as someone who games a lot, I like to think I'm an above average gamer, but realistically I'm probably not. I'm probably average, all things considered. The only game I'm probably above average at is Call of Duty, because of how much time I've put into it over the years, and because its formula carries year to year. But ultimately, every other game I'm probably just average. So when I walk into a game that I like for example Doom, where I don't know what I'm doing, it's platforming and FPS, and I'm dying from the platforming because I don't know where the hell I'm supposed to be going. And I'm thinking to myself, there's like 4 harder modes than this? No. Just no. Not happening. No.
Exactly.
But there's an EA game where you can't do anything without money. That sounds like most EA games.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna cut it there because we can talk about games all day. But that's not the point of the podcasts, right?
Maybe I'll come into one of your Friday Twitch streams and we can have a game ranting session or something like that.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it now. I don't mind it for the open floor parts, but I don't want the podcast to be just gaming because it takes away from the original point.
Right. But all right.
We definitely appreciate you guys coming out. We will see you guys next week for episode number 8, and then remember after episode 8, the next week we will be off. Also, something to keep in mind is because I'm moving soon and I have a lot of things I have to handle. The podcast may get put off for 2 to 3 weeks because I have a lot of things I got to do. So I can't promise that I'll be back. You know me, I'll be back at it as soon as possible. But it's up in the air. It's out of my hands for the moment. So we'll have to play it by ear. But yeah, this was a great podcast. We appreciate you guys coming out, and we will see you guys next time on Screaming Into the Void.